to how Mouse ruined comics.
Okay.
All right, 30 seconds. Your 30 seconds are up. No more boomer music.
Stop right there, criminal scum.
Well, that was exciting. It's Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday. It's another episode of the Mattriarchy. I am, as always, Matt Rhys, your host, coming to you from windy but sunny Scottsbluff, Nebraska. It's a typical spring day in Nebraska. How are you guys doing? Panel.
I'm empty.
I'm sorry, we got started a little late. I've got a little of it's a proper 12. It's an Irish whiskey. It's quite tasty.
Okay. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous.
I'm not anonymous. My name's right on the
Everyone knows who I am.
Okay. Okay.
Also,
welcome to just alcoholics.
let's be honest. I'm an appreciator of fine spirits. That's the difference.
Oh, okay.
Jim Tuner in the chat says, "Is Popeye going to fight Spider-Man tonight?" Who knows? Who knows what will happen? Last week we called into being Popeye defeating Dracula from Castlevania. Like the day after our stream, somebody posted a video that was a scene from a Popeye cartoon interlaced with scenes from a Castlevania.
That was pretty good.
I don't know.
I watched that video like 50 times.
It's insane. It's insane. We tonight joined for our theme. Our theme tonight is my favorite Spider-Man story. And so to this, we brought Cap'n Cummings. How are you doing today, Captain?
I'm wonderful.
Yeah. You've been getting ready for the marathon, yeah?
Yeah. It's fun. Actually, It's not really that fun. I mean, if you like running, it's whatever, but I mean,
yeah.
Running kind of
like, I was gonna say, what kind of marathon is this? Is this like a marathon where you actually do exercise, or is this a marathon where you drink a lot?
I mean, that'd probably be funner.
Apparently, you just run for an extended amount of time.
Yeah.
26 miles.
26
I'm
miles.
Dang.
That's a long time to be. Actually, it's not the moving that long for that long time. It's going in the same direction, running.
I'm not sure if you go in the same direction.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You probably go one way.
I don't think it's
the opposite way.
I don't think it's exactly a straight line.
Yeah, probably not.
We got Tony Sizzle in chat saying, "I actually liked Eric Larson's run before Image."
Yeah.
And that six-arm Spider-Man, full stop, amazing, 101 through 102, 1971.
So, we are going to talk about my favorite Spider-Man comic, but we all had to pick one.
Yeah.
And I actually got all of the covers into the thumbnail. I was very tickled. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at the thumbnail. I came up with that idea today. It's fun. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you didn't see it leading up, then check it out for the show. It was fun to put together.
Good job.
Yes. So Twitless, what was your favorite? Let's just dive right in.
Okay.
What's your favorite Spider-Man comic?
Hold on. I'm actually going to pull it up. So I last time, because I saw other people were posting older Spider-Man stories, and so I wanted to kind of like counterbalance that with maybe something a little bit newer, so that it wasn't just us talking about old stuff. But this time I went, I think, with the old story.
Yes.
Because I went with Amazing Spider-Man number 20. And I'm pulling up some images right now that we can take a look at.
This is a Stan Lee and Steve Ditko comic.
Yeah, this is one of the original team, as it were. So
one of my first Spider-Man purchases. I'm gonna little thing. I brought some. I've watched some visual aids.
Okay.
So my first Spider-Man purchases when I got into comics, or this 4-part right here, right? The The Saga of Spider-Man, which is a combination of comic art and history telling Spider-Man's whole story prior to the Clone Saga, which came out like the next year, right? So like, I had I over the course of like 6 months they put this out, and so I'd read about this story in prose form in the Saga of Spider-Man, but I'd never had taken the chance to read it until today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Vincenzo gives us a thumbs up. I'm guessing that he either likes Spider-Man or liked one of our picks. Jim Tuner says Spider-Man versus the Wall. I've actually seen that from the Electric Company. Yeah. Yeah, that's a funny. And there's actually because it comes from that Electric Company show. There's actually some video you can see of that, which is even more sillier. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man number 20. So the other story that I was going to go with, I always like to go with mention my, runner-up pick. And the other one I was going to mention is, it's, what issue was, it was Moreland, that whole saga, the first time they introduced Moreland, which was that like energy vampire guy. So that was apparently, it's volume 2, number 30 from the 2000s. And the reason I was going to pick it was because it's got a really great moment where Moreland is this like kind of unstoppable villain. He's a little bit like Doomsday, but for Spider-Man in a way. And Spider-Man throws everything he can at him and just can't beat him. And it's this unstoppable force in a way. And it's almost like, is Spider-Man going to bite it? Is he going to buy the farm? And then Spider-Man basically realizes that really what makes him special is the fact that he was bitten by a radioactive spider. And so he overdoses on some radiation, and Moreland can't handle it because Moreland is draining the spider part of Spider-Man, and he can't handle the radiation. And what I liked about that particular story was the fact that it reinforced Spider-Man's origin as a science superhero. Because it was like, it's the radioactive part of you that's special. Now, the reason why I didn't actually pick it...
Science.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. hashtag Stanley science.
Yeah. Science!
Radiation is magic!
Can I risk saying that's Fauci levels of science right there?
No, it's way past that. It's science fantasy, but it's
I said, it's Fauci levels of science.
You got to make this political on me, don't you? But
hey, I'm not the one who told people that AIDS was air communicable. That wasn't on me.
Okay, back to Spider-Man. My gosh. The reason why I didn't go with that Spider-Man story with Moreland in it is because it introduces probably some of the worst lore that ends up breaking Spider-Man worse than anything ever has before or since, because it introduces the spider totem idea, which actually does take away from Spider-Man being a science-based kind of superhero and more of this like you got your powers from magic totem stuff. And then it also introduced it, and then it's also Moreland in the Inheritors is also where we get Spider-Verse from, which
so
is
that from J. Michael Straczynski's run then?
I believe it's Straczynski, yes.
Yeah.
So, and I believe that's also where we eventually get Spider-Verse from. And it's also where we get Cindy Moon, Silk, and some really terrible writing that ended up kind of coming out of some of that. And so I was like, you know what? I like that moment. I can't go with that. I cannot go with that as my favorite Spider-Man story because it introduces too much poop into the Spider-Man mythos. So instead, I went with an old school story, and the reason why I love this one, this is Spider-Man, his first battle against the Scorpion, and there's
this was good. This was good. Did anybody else get a chance to read this one in prep for the show, or is that just me?
I've read it before.
Yeah. This is just good stuff, and the thing that I love about it. Taylor says, not a fan of Spider-Verse. No, and you shouldn't be either. It's terrible. The concept of the Spider-Verse is like the worst. It's literally Syndrome from The Incredibles. When everyone is super, no one will be. And it's when everyone is Spider-Man, no one is. it completely waters down everything that Peter Parker is.
I probably don't think anything past like Civil War, Spider-Man.
Yeah, they kind of killed Spider-Man in Civil War. I've actually made that argument on the show before. That's like that the death of Captain America, the death of Spider-Man, both happened in Civil War.
It definitely didn't help. It was definitely a very bad moment. Anyway, so let me talk about a couple of reasons why I love this one. There's this great story from the 1970s where he has his Spider-Man dune buggy and crashes it into the East River. Then it's just forgotten about for years. So here's the thing about Stan Lee.
No one ever talks about that.
For every 5 good ideas that Stan Lee had, he had at least 2 bad ones that you need to forget. Because for every, Scorpion or Dr. Octopus, you get like a Paste Pot Pete or something. And you get a character that you just need to just pretend just doesn't exist, or you get a concept like Spider-Man's like searchlight nonsense that he basically they copied with like the bat signal, and it's like, we don't need that. That's I'm gonna get
it came in handy in one story.
He was on his belt buckle, like.
Yeah, I know. like he was pissing.
Crotch forward designs are always welcome, Twitless. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh gosh. Anyway, as I was saying, Scorpion was definitely a banger of an idea because scorpions are natural predators for spiders, and so there's this idea that even in the character's identity is a threat. Just from the animal metaphor, just the fact that he's taken, even though he's not a real scorpion, he's just a dude who they give. He gets a science experiment. He gets kind of like Spider-Man powers similar to Spider-Man in terms of like strength and durability.
He's infused with the essence of the scorpion,
right? Yes, but he's not. He doesn't have like any other scorpion power. The rest of it has to be tech based, kind of like Spider-Man with his web shooters. He has to have that a scorpion tail. It has to be mechanical. But what's cool, and this is what I really love, is the structure of this story. And that's what draws me back to it. And what's neat about this one is that, and I actually fall into this pit too sometimes, even with Omega Girl, is that many superhero stories that include a supervillain, especially if it's a new supervillain, they tend to follow many of them, not all, but many of them follow a very typical pattern. The pattern is superhero meets supervillain, especially like Spider-Man, and supervillain has an ability or a power that the superhero can't quite overcome or doesn't know how to overcome. And so supervillain wins the first engagement. And then superhero comes back in round 2 and I have found the Achilles heel to whatever it is that you have, and now I win. So if you think about lots of classic examples, I'm thinking back to like old issues of, the Vanisher from like the first like issue of X-Men, and it's like, you can't beat me, and then round 2 they turn it around on the villain. This pattern happens all the time, and it definitely happened with Spider-Man. When Spider-Man first fought Dr. Octopus kind of cleans his clock, and then Spider-Man's like, oh, I think I need to quit being Spider-Man. No, I'm going to still be a hero. Turns it around in round 2, clinches out the win. It's a great story. Here's what I love about this one. This one does not settle for round 1 and round 2. This one goes at least, I think, for round 3.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. So Spider-Man fights Scorpion and loses the first round, comes back for a second bout. And I'm actually going to pull up the image from that. And what's really fascinating is in the second fight, Scorpion still wins, but Spider-Man is like gaining ground. And Scorpion starts mentioning that like it actually hurt when he punched Spider-Man. He's like, man, this guy's no joke. And then it's only in round 3 that Spider-Man pulls out that final win. And so the fight, as opposed to being just like a 1-2, it kind of feels almost like a boxing match where you're going through multiple rounds. And it really made me have this theory that Ditko or Kirby, some of the old school Marvel guys may have been boxing fans, because there's something about this fight in particular that really just sticks with me. And I really like how it flows, and it kind of breaks that typical pattern of 1-2.
Twitless, am I remembering correctly? Was or was this like an animated show that they stole it from? Was the Scorpion sponsored by J. Jonah Jameson as a way to get Spider-Man?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah. So the story and the thing is that Matt Gargan is a private investigator that Jonah hires to follow Pete around, and so Pete's like, dude, this creepy old dude is following me around. What's up with that? And it turns out that Jonah had hired him to follow Pete to figure out how Pete got all the sweet Spider-Man pictures. And so Pete so there's one part in the first part of the story where Pete this weird old dude followed me home. I'm gonna dress like Spider-Man and run through my neighborhood and see if I can figure out what his story is. Instead of just being like, hey old man, why are you following me? I'm 16.
Yeah.
No.
It was a very different New York.
Apparently.
Nowadays, yeah, it would just be like
follows him from Manhattan to Queens and back to Manhattan again, and then Pete's like, I'm gonna look into this as Spider-Man, not just be like, listen, creep.
yeah, no, I am calling the cops, and you're going, and Chris Hansen, and you're going to very much jail.
To catch a scorpion.
Yeah, he's. Taylor says this is like the 1-2 formula is like every episode of Teen Titans, and Jim Tuner says it's also a very Dragon Ball Z. It's very common in this type of fiction. But there's your joke.
I mean, I definitely think that Stan at least had a knowledge of combat sports, based on a lot of the idioms that the Thing uses, but also, I mean, like Spider-Man's whole origin starts off as a show wrestler, So I definitely think that that Stan was aware of combat sports and combat sports entertainment as part of the New York idiom.
So the story itself follows a lot of patterns that
the unresolute. I'm not sure that going around in a spider costume is that subtle. I'm gonna go off and say that.
Good point.
Anyway.
So the story itself is it does follow some typical patterns of hey, bad guy goes to mad scientist to get superpowers. Although this one has an interesting moment because the scientist isn't a bad guy. The mad scientist is actually a decent fellow, and Scorpion kind of goes insane as I think a side effect of his treatment.
Yeah, and it's cool because the Scorpion, the scientist is like, okay, I'm doing this for 10 G's, but listen, this might make you crazy. And Gorgon's like, I can handle crazy. I'm also getting paid 10 G's.
Because that was major supervillain money back in the day.
And so they're just like, crazy, not crazy, pshaw. Have 10,000 clams.
That was like $3 billion back in the day.
I could retire on that.
Well, then there's a great moment where, of course, Gargan does go crazy. And his moral sense is severed. So he was a bad guy before. He was just a guy who did whatever it took to do the job, right? So he wasn't a good guy, but he wasn't a bad guy before. And then this drug, this treatment actually makes him go criminally insane. And that's one of the interesting aspects about this whole thing. And so what we have on this scene is, I'm totally stepping on your toes, but I loved this story. Is that the mad scientist is like, oh no, I've made the man insane. I have to give him the antidote so he's not crazy anymore. And so he tries to chase him down, and Gargan's like, why would I care about being crazy when I can be rich?
Which leads to this hilarious RJ, you're muted.
Yep, sorry. So drugs made Scorpion crazy, drugs made Green Goblin crazy, drugs made Lizard crazy. Cap's fine. Cap's okay.
And actually, it's really interesting because the treatment that he sends the Gargan through is not unlike the treatment they used on Captain America. And I know that Stan wasn't trying to bring Cap in to the whole thing, but other writers have taken that idea that there's something unique about the super soldier serum that was that I can't remember the scientist's name, the Ertl
Erskine?
knew that Erskine, thank you.
Ertl brought the Martian Manhunter in.
Yeah. And Ertl was also the building toys. They made the erector sets. Anyway, but then Erskine, there was something he knew that he didn't tell anybody else, but people tried to figure it out, and they kept making crazy people. And like that's a theme in the comics.
Well, what it is they're probably using Trembolone, and he kept the Trembolone out of the super serum for. That's the one that gives you the roid rage.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I was like, you're saying
Dave-
something that's real, but I don't know what it is.
Dave Asanovich says, sorry, I'm late. What happened? We're talking about Spider-Man number 20, which is my pick for favorite Spider-Man.
Oh, here you go.
And which does lead to this interesting, I love this panel of the scientist climbing a building after Scorpion with nothing and then going, oops, I'm falling and gonna die, but maybe I can still hit him with the serum.
And maybe he'll swallow a little of it and be a little less crazy.
Well,
And that fails.
sometimes you don't think something out.
Well,
And then when
especially
you realize you've made a mistake, you're like, well, I might as well make the most of it.
It
you're
was
already falling to your death.
it was at this moment that he knew.
Well, and the great thing too is it's just like he's
effed
fallen
up.
to his death, and the Scorpion's response is like, "Whew, I dodged that bullet."
He's like, I got things to do. And this is what leads to kind of that second round, and it also leads to him kind of saying, here he goes, I should have remembered how strong his own muscles are. It feels as though I hit a bulldozer. So this is round 2. Scorpion wins second round. But Scorpion's like, man, this guy's no joke. And so it kind of it raises the stakes in a way, in the sense that these two fighters actually have they're fighting on more or less a semi-equivalent ground, which I love, because when the villain completely dominates, there's not as many stakes, because it's like, the hero can't do anything about it. Like when Spider-Man first encountered Electro, he just touched Electro and almost shocked himself to death. So it was just game over, and then Spider-Man was like, okay, insulated gloves now. And then, it's very binary. And this fight with the Scorpion, because they're so evenly matched and Spider-Man is just underneath, he's just barely not quite at Scorpion's level, but he's close. He's like, I can feel my strength returning. Next time it'll be different. And I love how he combines just like some, let me pull up this last screen cap I want to pull. So the final fight ends up being a little mixture of just Spider-Man's ingenuity with his own powers and then just slugging it out. And so what he does is he uses his webbing very cleverly, and he just glues his feet to the floor. He then uses like the leverage to then just rip that tail off him. And then it's just pound town, and they just go at it. And because Scorpion has been like glued to the floor, he's not as he's much more immobile, and Spider-Man just outmaneuvers him, and just like he wins. And
one of the things I really appreciated about this fight too was that to get him to the place where he was worn down enough where he could get stayed down, like he was dodging him. It was all like, I can't, in a fair fight, Gargan's, he doesn't even know he's Gargan yet, but the Scorpion's gonna totally, he's stronger than me and I'm faster, but he's so much stronger than me. Like in a straight slug match, he's gonna win. So he can't hit me. Rule 1 is don't get hit. And so he's using that spider agility to wear him down enough to where then he's like, okay, now your feet are glued to the floor. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, nothing, because he's just wore out.
and so, like I said, that's also, it feels like very kind of boxing match-ish, where it's like, I'm going to use, but it doesn't feel cheap. It's not just, I have an anti-Scorpion weapon, you lose. This was it's a mixture of, like I said, some ingenuity, using his spider powers cleverly, and then some good old fashioned just like fisticuffs. And the one with those things combined, he pulls out the win. And I love this fight, and I think it's one of the best Spider-Man fights of all time, because of the things that I've laid out. And so this
pretty close. It's pretty close. We're going to talk about one later today that's up there, and for similar reasons too.
Gotcha.
Actually,
but the old web of dope.
Yeah, but this is But like I said, this is top tier Spider-Man battle. It's like I said, one of the best that he's ever had, in my opinion, from what I've read. And so this one sticks in my memory for that reason. And it's an inspiration to me in my own superhero writing. So Omega Girl is going to have some fights like this. You know, she hasn't faced some of them yet, but she will end up having some fights that are not just going to be a 1 or a 2. It's going to take a while for her to win. And this story is a great inspiration for that.
So, and I also, one of the things I love about it too is the way it ends, right? So he gets the knockout punch on Mac, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's in Jameson's office because Mac's like, the only person that knows my real identity and can finger me to the cops is that Jameson. I'm gonna kill him. So he goes to kill him, and Spider-Man's like, oh, I better go save the man trying to kill me by stopping the man trying to kill him. And then he knocks him out, and he's like, dude, that guy's gonna come to any minute. You better call the cops now. I'm out of here. So he just hopes that the cops have a fast enough response time to get there.
Actually, you know what? Here's another good panel to share. Here's another good moment, because it's actually one of the an early moment that actually gives Jameson a little bit of depth. Because early Ditko and Lee era Spider-Man was literally Jameson saying, Spider-Man is the man I cannot be. I must hate him. And it's very Ayn Rand. It's very Ditko objectivist writing. Mm-hmm. But here we have this wonderful moment where Jameson is like,
this is great. Mm-hmm.
What's happening? Have I gone mad? Here I am cheering for Spider-Man, the one I hate worst in all the world. And then Jameson is like, you beat him. You defeated someone who's stronger than you. And he's kind of in awe. And he's even, he has this little silent moment here, this little silent moment of reflection. And it gives Jameson a little bit of depth. And it's something that I wish Ayn Rand would have done in some of the characters she wrote in Atlas Shrugged. But
or anything she wrote.
Yeah, a little bit of depth from Jameson, which especially in early stories, he was very one note.
Well, and I mean, and like in his, Jameson's fault with Peter Parker in this panel 3, his question about Spider-Man, and not about Peter, but about Spider-Man, is exactly like the motivation for Batman in Batman v Superman. So that's some good prescience there. But yeah, I really love this story as well. It's still not my favorite Spider-Man story.
All right.
So you did not convince me, Twitless, that your story is better than mine.
Well, I don't think any of us are going to convince any of the rest of us. I didn't know. I don't know if that's what this show is about, but
every show is about that.
Okay. Well, I win. This is still the best one. Prove me wrong, and I don't think you're going to be able to. So,
yeah. So first of all, I have to ask the panel before we get into it. I have to ask the panel: Are we Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane people?
Is it 420?
Gwen Stacy?
It is not. It is 413.
413.
Okay. Then for right now, I'll be Gwen Stacy, people.
How about you, Twitless? Do you have a preference?
I don't know. I do like Gwen. And early Mary Jane was kind of irritating, if I'm being honest.
How about you, Captain?
Mary Jane.
I am 100% on Team Mary Jane. In fact, I think Gwen Stacy was a mistake.
I don't think you're hip enough if you're not in the Mary Jane.
Yeah, I think there's definitely you got to question your car. But here's part of why that I love Mary Jane, and this is a specific weirdness about me as a consumer of entertainment, right? I love like Mary.
Actually, whoa, hold on. I take that all back. I am a Betty Brant guy. Boom. That is who I am. I'm for the original Spider-Man romance. Don't give me this Gwen Stacy MJ stuff. Betty Brant.
Betty made her choices, and they were all bad.
I liked Gwen because Mary Jane was the easy girlfriend, and I don't mean easy that way. I mean easy in that she lived with her aunt as a guardian, pretty much the same way that Peter lived with Aunt May. So basically nothing. Whereas Gwen Stacy, her father's the police captain. And the police are kind of looking for Spider-Man all the time. So there was this huge tension thing going on with that relationship.
Well, and also like she didn't respect the Spider-Man mission, and she was kind of easily swayed. I mean, she heard one anti-war speech and ended up becoming like some sort of like hippie rioter. I think Gwen was too much of a simpleton to handle the Spider-Man lifestyle.
I'm also a Lana Lang person, so it's just
Dave's with me with Team Betty.
How about Betty Brant? So Taylor says no Black Cat fans. No.
Actually, no. That's my fault. I liked Black Cat too.
No, Black Cat. Black Cat is the girl that you flirt with and you never get her number.
No, I can fix her.
She's dangerous.
I like Matt C says, I can fix her.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
No, you can't. No, you
yes,
can't.
I can. Yes, I can. Piss off. I can totally do
it. I started dating a black cat once. It was one of the worst decisions I've ever made.
Okay, this stream's about to turn into the many girlfriends of Spider-Man. It's like, what about Silver Sable?
So here's okay. No.
That's who he ends up with after he marries Black Cat in the What If story.
Silver Sable?
Yep. Because like even when he gets married to Black Cat, it can't work out. Anyway.
So anyway, back to what I was saying though. I am an MJ person. I think that that's her character, her personality, her like the amount of stuff that they've done before they become a couple, kind of grow up. Liz is actually who I was trying to think about earlier, because Liz was before Betty, but like it was a whole thing. Both Betty and Liz are tragic characters. They both make me cry thinking about like all that stuff.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, not sorry.
they're anyway. But back to MJ. I think MJ is just such a good match. Like she's got a spirit about her. Know what I'm saying?
Yes, we all know MJ has spunk.
Spunk, and also like patience and all that other kind of stuff. And one of the things I love about my book, my pick, Spider-Man: Spirits of the Earth, is that MJ is such a major part of the story, right? And not in a girl in peril sort of a way at all, because that's not part of the story at all. And so that's one of the things that one of my picks. It's a newlywed story just after they were married. Oh, and in case you guys didn't know, we're actually going through everybody's picks in chronological order.
Oh, okay.
So we'll stop.
One thing I'll say about your pick though is it's kind of cheating because it's in the like European hardcover format.
It is. It looks very much like a BD. That's very true.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a mixture of Spider-Man meets Tintin, especially in the color palette. It was so Euro scene.
So Charles Vest, the guy who wrote and painted. Actually, I've got some scans on the ready. Let me share my screen. That's not the button I meant to hit.
Okay, I can pull some stuff up too if you need it.
Oh, if you got it handier, then maybe that's easier for you.
All right, what page do you want?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Just any of them. They're all gorgeous.
Let me find one that's representative.
Oh, hey,
style.
Dave says the first hardback graphic novel he ever owned. This is like the third or fourth for me. Believe it or not, I found this at Goodwill. I paid like $7 for this.
Oh. I think my first hardcover graphic novel was Batman: Son of the Demon.
I'm not gonna lie, this one's a little weird for me.
Man, but I loved it. So the art, Charles Vest, who also did Stardust with Neil Gaiman.
Some Sandman as well.
Some Sandman stuff. Yeah. He's got this. It's watercolor and pen and ink. It is just, oh man, the whole thing is great. So the premise of the story is that Spider-Man starts off. He's just loving New York City, and he sits down, has a wonderful supper with his aunt, and they say, "Oh, by the way, me and Mary Jane are taking a second honeymoon, and we're going to Scotland because apparently she had an aunt that she didn't tell me about who just died, who's Scottish."
Left her a castle.
Yeah, left her. Well, it's actually a little croft, a little farmhouse. And
I was kidding. I didn't know.
no, there's not a castle, but there is a castle in the story. There's a local laird who had a missing, has had a child go missing, and there's been all sorts of stuff going on. People are saying that there's ghosts and fairies that are absconding through the land, and when they get there and they're hearing all these ghost stories, and it's just really weird. And Spider-Man doesn't feel comfortable because there's not enough noise, because it's the Highlands and there's no taxi cabs or bar fights. Even in the pub, there's not a bar fight. It stops before it gets to that point. And so he's really out of his place without enough violence and noise. And so he late at night, he hasn't been able to wear himself out enough to sleep, I guess. And so he heads up to check out the abandoned castle and finds these ghosts.
Yeah, let me pull an image from that. That's a pretty good image when he's castling the ghosts. Yeah.
So this story combines several of my favorite themes. It's got folklore and fairy stories and the Celtic nations, and it's got superheroes and marriage, and they're all big plot points that go into the story. So I love it. It's also gorgeous.
It is pretty. It's a little. I don't know if I would call this the best Spider-Man story, because it stretches aspects of Peter's character. Mm-hmm. There's a few lines that Vess gives him that I'm like, yeah, Peter's not saying that. I'm sorry. There's a couple of them, especially at the beginning when he's like, "Oh, the city is like," and he's like basically starts spouting poetry.
Yeah,
I'll
give you that. He sounds a little more like Vess.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm Spider-Man would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm late for dinner." Like we've gotten Spider-Man's voice so ingrained into us over so many issues that whenever he swings across the city, he's usually got like 900 thoughts of all the things he's behind on. That's the most Spider-Man thing ever. And Vess was like, "Oh, let me do some poetry."
There's not a lot of that, but there is some of that.
But there is some beautiful art, and like I said, what I do think stands out about the story that I do like is the fact that it does show that you can do superheroes and blend in, because it's a great marriage what Vess does with the Euro scene. Like I said, there's shots of this that look like a shot from Tintin. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It not quite like in terms of line style, because Hergé,
The Hergé did this whole thing in the clear line style, and this
so
doesn't have that.
Yeah, it's not quite that. But
in terms of the layouts,
and I would say the coloring in some respects, like some shots of the pub look very like, I think at least analogous. And also the fact that if anyone's read Tintin and the Black Island, which is basically him in Celtic gear going to a mysterious castle, even in some of
Scotland,
some of the themes that happen, are similar. And so this is, I think, very Tintin-esque in some ways. And so that kind of marriage between the sort of Euro scene adventure comic and the action superhero comic, and I will say that Vess did pick the perfect antagonist for this story. Mm-hmm.
The other thing about it, and I don't want to spoil too much, because like it really, like the first part of the first half of the thing, it looks like you're like Spider-Man's gonna walk, like is he walking into like a horror story? Is he walking into like a supernatural fairy tale kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And then like it's turned totally on its edge when you find out what's really going on. Right, it still has some of that stuff going on in there, and it's still.
So I don't want to burst your bubble, but who's familiar with the Avengers television show with Emma Peel and Diana Rigg? Okay, this story is exactly the plot of an Avengers storyline, which then makes the actual reveal of the antagonist that much more of like, yeah, I know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Obscure show from the 60s.
It's not that obscure.
It's pretty obscure. Like they made an adaptation of it, thinking they could bank in on the name, and it bombed hardcore. Well, also, it didn't help that it had one of Sean Connery's most laughable moments on screen.
Ironically, that was pretty much par for the course for any Avengers script for the TV show.
That's fair. I'm just saying it's like there's like 7 Avengers fans out there in the world, and you guys are all crazy for the show, and nobody else knows what you're talking about.
So apparently, Critical Blast and I are 2 of those 7, and my wife makes 3, so there's 4 left.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you guys know the musician Brian Urso. I'm friends with him on Facebook and Twitter. He's also a huge Avengers fan.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife. So there's probably one more out there somewhere.
That's the club.
That's the club because they named their dog Emma. So
oh gosh, so you know that the villain of the story comes from the Avengers, and that whole villainous organization comes from an episode of the Avengers. Chris Claremont just lifted it straight from Diana Rigg in that particular episode.
Right, but it also comes from history.
I thought you were literally talking about a cartoon Avengers.
No. The Avengers.
No, I realized you were talking about the show I've never seen before.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So Vess is very much pulling from that here.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, like the association that they used in that also comes from. There's a real historical parallel to that.
Sure, I'm just saying that it's pretty clear what Vess is drawing from,
Sure.
including the setup. The setup for the plot of the story maps entirely on, because for anyone who hasn't watched the show, the Avengers would be it was a pair of basically kind of like secret agents essentially, and they would usually investigate a Twilight Zone or kind of supernatural, at least it would appear to be a supernatural occurrence. It'd be like, oh, a ghost is haunting something, or something weird's going on at this mall or whatever. And they would investigate, and they would always find that it was some science experiment, some mad scientist was doing a thing, pretending that there were ghosts around or whatever. And then they would break the machine, kill the guy, and, walk away into the sunset, and open a bottle of, champagne or whatever.
And drink it from her shoe.
Yeah, and then hop in a car and drive away. The Avengers show had a format, and so like I said, Vess is heavily drawing from that here, because in addition to that, like I said before, if you're a fan of the Chris Claremont era X-Men, there is a supervillain group called the Hellfire Club, and Diana Rigg with very sexy outfit that was basically completely plagiarized for Jean Grey when she was mind controlled by what's his name?
Sebastian Shaw.
No, it was the illusion guy that worked with Sebastian. What was his name? Mind something. Oh crap! What's his name? I'm so embarrassed. I should know this. RJ, what's the?
I know it too, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, what's the Mastermind? Yeah, Mastermind. Wow. And when they dressed her up in the Victorian kind of bondage gear, that comes straight from an episode of the Avengers. So Jim Turner says Mastermind, which is close.
He's fast on the draw.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rhys, continue telling us why this is the second best Spider-Man story.
Yeah. So anyway, the thing I love about it is that part of what I love about it is that the Mary Jane and Peter's relationship, I think, is drawn really authentically. I think the art's amazing, but also she's not the damsel in distress. She's not just waiting at home for him to get back. She ends up being part of the action in that final act, in a way that is utterly appropriate for somebody who's not super powered, just a normal girl out there in the world. And so I thought it did. It's a beautiful complementarian piece. It's gorgeously put. I love the way the elements blended together, and it hit like my favorite things all in the story. While Spider-Man is not my favorite hero, this is my favorite Spider-Man story. The second, if I had to pick a second one, would be I've got a comic of the second or third appearance of the Fabulous Frogman that always would crack me up when I was a kid.
Leapfrog.
Oh man, it's good stuff.
All right, is there another panel that you really would like to show from that one?
I think that's good. Actually, the first page is gorgeous. That's why I bought the thing. I opened up the first page and I was like, ooh.
First page, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll pull it up.
Yeah, it's got the Chrysler building in it. It's great.
Have you guys seen the Bernie Wrightson Spider-Man story?
No.
I think it's called like Spooky. It's not really it's not really a good Spider-Man story. It's more like he goes supernatural.
There was one that had Spider-Man and Daredevil in it, and it was like there was like an invasion from hell or something, and that's why Daredevil was there or something. And what I didn't like it because whoever was writing it, I don't remember, but whoever was writing it made Spider-Man be really disrespectful to like religion, and like Daredevil was there to be like act as a balance to that. But when Spider-Man was like cracking jokes about like, you know, Catholicism and it was really disrespectful. And I didn't, there's a tone of it I didn't appreciate.
That's not Peter.
Yeah.
So whoever wrote that one, you can go get bent.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the other things I did. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about this. We're talking about hard-won victories, and the one of the things that they do, like Peter does get knocked around a little in this book, and I actually kind of love it when Peter gets knocked around a little, because like there's something authentic about like going out there. He doesn't really, I mean, he's been in enough fights now. He probably knows what he's doing, but he's not like a martial artist. So every once in a game when Peter gets knocked around a little, it's sort of like it makes it a hard-won thing.
Yeah, but there, I couldn't take this moment seriously though. Where I got an image pulled up. So this is a panel that I think needs to be read. And so it's like I kind of get what they were going at, because it's like Spider-Man's like tired, and so like he can't quite fight at the same level.
Well, yeah, he just been in the middle of an earthquake.
I know, but this line here, I'm sorry, I can't take it seriously. Steel, spring, calf muscles, hardened from a lifetime of walking his homeland's loft glens. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't read that with a straight face.
Well, let's be fair. Your face isn't straight to begin with.
You shut up. He walked his whole life up hills, and so he's a real threat to Spider-Man. And I'm like, sorry, I can't.
If you're not ready for a hit, you still take a hit.
I know, but I think it's the way it's.
Spider-Man only weighs 170 pounds. Come on.
Okay, he's got spider endurance. We know this. No, I think the point is just it's the fact that it's the way the line is written.
Okay.
It's
a little purple.
It's
a little purple.
Yeah, it's
very florid. Angus is used to walking up 45-degree inclines. Spider-Man walks up 90-degree inclines.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care about the fact that you walk across the heath. Okay.
Okay. I still like it.
I know.
Now, Tuner is out there giving me crap. This isn't the part I was talking about.
I know. I just pulled it up because
it was coming out of the earthquake that I was talking about.
Okay.
But I wasn't going to talk about the earthquake because they won't let people know there was an earthquake. But
okay.
Hey, everybody, there's an earthquake. Okay. So the next one we had on our list was actually Cap'n Cummings. Spider-Man.
I've got the most recent one. Okay.
You got the most recent one. You're last.
Yeah, so I picked Amazing Spider-Man 347. And I went with a single issue story. Because I would have either gone probably with Kraven's Last Hunt if it was like multi-issues, or Maximum Carnage.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah,
I like the themes and the ideas of Maximum Carnage, but I like Kraven's Last Hunt as execution better.
I almost picked Maximum Carnage, but I'm like, it's a little edgy for me to say it's my favorite Spider-Man.
Yeah. But there's a bunch of others. So then it was like limiting it between a single issue, and I like that one where it's like a dream with Thanos. It was in the Todd McFarlane run, but I don't think he was the artist anymore.
So
like
speaking
maybe
of
17 or something like that. But I read this one more recently, and I was like, I'll just go with one I've read more recently and enjoyed.
So speaking of edgy,
yeah, this one's pretty edgy too. This is Eric Larson, who it's probably his best work, like his Spider-Man run.
Yeah, I thought the art in here was really, there was, I can't remember for sure. Let me see if I can find a page that really hit me. But there was several moments in this comic where I was looking at the layouts and I'm just like, these layouts are like next level layouts.
Yeah, he's really good here, and I'm sure that has to do with the writer David. How do you say his name? McLeany. I always thought it was Micheline.
Like Michelin,
because that's just how I pictured it in my head. And then I went and Googled how to say his name, and then I forgot again by the time
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah. Before we get further, a comic talk with Pop Van Zant is here, saying, "What do we have here?" And that hello RJ bought me. Did you buy somebody?
No, well, you can, but you're not supposed to talk about it.
Oh, okay, sorry. And
So,
Jim
Turner says Maximum Carnage is the best Venom story. Perhaps.
It's really fun.
I keep getting Craven's Last Hunt mixed up with what I think is actually Torment. What was it? Maybe that was just a chapter of Craven's Last Hunt. What's the one where Peter's in the coffin, like for 5 out of the 6 issues, and the spider is always crawling down the tombstone, and he's like getting energy from the spider to come back to life? It was in Web of Spider-Man early in its incarnation.
I don't
remember that.
I think that's Craven. He was in the. I think it was in there for like 1 or 2 issues, maybe.
Where is Doug Ernst? Where is the spider? Where is the Spider-Man?
It has the mic.
Well, I'll tell you. I invited Doug on. I said, Doug, we're doing this thing. It's right up your alley. He says it is, but I'm too busy and I can't come. I said,
oh well.
But this had a voodoo priestess, and it was very much. I think it was the first one I saw where, and I was kind of turned off by it too because it got away from the science, and it was the spider totem. Thing. It was the first time I saw spider totemness.
Yeah, I hate the spider totem stuff. It's terrible.
I think it would be really cool if they did it with somebody else.
Sure, but not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
For Spider-Man, it's just the dumbest thing ever. Sorry, Phil. Captain Cummings, we keep interrupting. Let me pull up some images, and you can walk us through Eric Larson's enormously jawed Venom here.
So I always liked the cover because you have this grotesque Spider-Man looking figure. Let's say you don't even know who Venom is. You're like, what the heck happened to Spider-Man? And why is there also a spider mask on that skull? I always looked at it like it was like Hamlet,
Yeah.
So you get into the story, and this cover is actually like a spoiler alert, which is unfortunate, but it's so cool that like you forgive it, right? And essentially this is like a battle story, and it's just like your story with Amazing Spider-Man 20, where Spider-Man can't win, and he's fighting somebody that's more powerful than him, and they're on an island, which is kind of gimmicky, and it's funny, or kind of funny.
I think the line
like Spider-Man on an island. It's like, what?
I think the line of Venom chartering a plane to take Spider-Man on a private island getaway is a little too much for me to take again without cracking a
it's like was it like Full House when they go on like a Hawaii vacation?
Okay, when I woke up this morning and I started thinking about all the stuff I had to do today and how things would shake out, the last thing on my head was, you know what? Captain Cummings is going to compare a Spider-Man story where he dodges being killed to a Full House episode.
That's why, as Eddie Brock, we chartered a plane to bring you here, for we had previously used our reporter skill to determine that this island is completely deserted. In the 40s, mining activity brought commerce and civilization, but a disaster closed the mine and the population drifted off, making this an ideal battleground. And just...
You're getting a history lesson right there.
Venom being a tour... Venom being a tour guide is too much for me.
That's the part that obviously this, the way it's laid out is a little cheesy, but at the same time, like, I loved this part of the story because, like, so often Venom is just like this big dumb guy, And like
Mhm.
Eddie Brock's not supposed to be a genius, but he's not supposed to be an idiot.
Well, and
Right?
now they've
Because-
turned him into like, isn't he like some sort of mythical, like Venom's attached to like some mythical creature
No.
or something like that?
Yeah,
Isn't he
the
like-
god, no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the god.
yeah.
It's like,
No,
like
he like
you're kind of just like, the more you know, sometimes the less cool it is.
Mhm.
That's just
well, especially when they're like, oh no. So isn't because if I remember the story right, like hasn't like Venom's like taken the place of or is the incarnation of like the symbiote god or something, right?
Oh gosh.
Isn't that the thing?
Why?
No, see, I didn't really care for Venom, and I read stuff after this. I hadn't read this one before, and I didn't really care for it because he's like seems like he's just angry or he's just stupid. I didn't really like it, and it's like, well, he's kind of interesting because Peter Parker is a character and Eddie Brock's an anti-character. He's an uncharacter, so you kind of have this dichotomy in the structure. But the thing I liked about this story is that like the anger that Brock has toward Peter doesn't make any sense, but like he's shown being strategic, he's shown with planning and forethought. He's a capable villain.
He's cunning.
Crazy, but he's cunning. Yes, he's cunning, and I liked that in this episode a lot.
Yeah, because it is silly. Like literally, the only reason they're there is to kill Spider-Man. Why? We don't really. There is no reason besides you got to kill Spider-Man.
My
But
theory.
you don't-
My
you don't know
theory.
why. That's the whole point of the story.
Well, they both have
And-
reasons.
Yeah,
Because Eddie Brock lost his job because Peter Parker. I forget the exact reason why, but Eddie Brock was like being fraudulent as a reporter. He was making stuff up, and Venom wants to kill Spider-Man because Spider-Man rejected him. But this is a spurned romance relationship.
And on that note, my
not
theory.
really a romance per se.
That fits my theory. That actually fits my theory because I actually think that this is an abortive romance story because Venom chartered them a private plane and then flew them out to a private island vista so they could spend some time alone.
I couldn't have that. I just couldn't deal with that.
Spider-Man actually beat Venom once by offering himself back to him.
That's true.
And then capture him. Because that's all Venom really wants. He doesn't want to kill Spider-Man. He'll kill Spider-Man if he can't have Spider-Man.
Exactly, like all good abortive romances. I'm telling you, this plays.
Yes.
Well, the thing is,
He's Sharon Stone.
to take this back from the creepy, you realize it. Like it doesn't have to be romantic to be maladaptive, right?
You realize I'm being
I know you're being facetious, but like everybody in the internet out there, Cable Guy is not about romance. It's not.
I love tour guide Venom who just wants a date with Spider-Man. That's the fanfic I want to see.
He's very verbose.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man, this place, it's a resort where we could get massages later after I kill you.
The part of Venom is now being played by Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
So I also, Taylor, I liked Agent Venom as well. I thought that was a really fun take on the idea. And I really like Flash Thompson as he got older.
There's a reference. There's an interesting reference to Flash that I actually like in here.
Yes.
It fleshes out his and Peter's relationship, which is nice.
Yeah. But anyway,
So Captain Cummings, walk us
We
through
interrupted
this.
you.
Walk us through this crazy story.
I mean, it's really just it's like what's the best way to explain it? Like in the Matrix at the very end of the movie where he's running. Like you got to get from point A to point B, and Spider-Man has no idea how he's going to get out of this because he's stuck on an island. And there's a couple cool spots where right here in the water, he jumps. Yeah, he gets pulled into the water.
Oh yeah, this was.
And he's fighting him because he's invisible or whatever. And so you see that Spider-Man's like essentially outmatched, and it's like, well, how is he going to get out of this?
Yeah.
Are we just going to walk past the fact that Eddie Brock was singing Gilligan's Island?
Oh no, not at all. That was beautiful. I was hoping somebody would bring that up. So one of the other things that's fun about this some of the things they did as far as the way it's written is they did a couple of scene breaks, interludes, what's going back in New York City or whatever. And so
meanwhile, MJ is building a snowman.
right. Do you want to build a snowman? Somebody's killing my husband.
Yeah, this is a weird comic in some ways.
It is,
when you try to explain it to people.
And there's these things that are, there's a scene with MJ thinking about, oh man, what's going on? I know that Peter's out trying to stop Venom because that's a whole thing. Aunt May's like, I haven't heard from Peter in a week, and what's up with that?
So I'm gonna watch my stories on TV.
Black Cat's like, man, Peter's not returning my phone calls, and the whole thing. Oh,
it does show up far from home. I didn't mean to make it sound like that, but how far away he is by seeing all the snow scenes and then the tropical island. That's a hemisphere,
right? And also, I would like to point out that Black Cat having a Felix Cat phone is a little too on brand.
On the nose? Yeah, it's a bit on the nose.
But yeah, the thing I like about it is they actually, they didn't do their scene breaks at page breaks, right? Some of the scene breaks are happening in the same page, but they're using layout. But the Larson's actually using the layout to tell you exactly when the scene is changing in a way that isn't jarring when it goes between them, but it also makes it seem like it's intercutting, like on a TV show. So you have this change of scene and this whole kind of thing. And I thought there's some craft involved in all of that was pretty solid.
That's a cool thing to point out. I have noticed that Larson's pretty cool when he's talking about comics, when he talks about page composition, talks about art on comics. I like listening to him when he talks craft.
As long as he's not talking about anything else.
Right, exactly. As long as he's not talking about anything else. But did you see he had a recent tweet, and it sounded like he was starting to come around a bit on some stuff, because he basically said he was talking about Iron Man, and he was like, I don't care. I want Tony Stark as Iron Man. I don't care that if you have other characters, like, let them be their own thing. I just want my Tony Stark Iron Man. Like, just leave that alone.
He kind of walked that back a little.
Did he? Oh,
yeah. Wes at Thinking Critical did a whole video laying the whole story out. It's pretty funny.
He had there's a glimmer of hope that, like, he could, see the light.
That's because Iron Man is probably his favorite character. He's like, oh wait, this just hit home.
Yeah, right.
Now you're goring my sacred cow.
Exactly.
What do you mean the Savage Dragon's not a woman? Anyway.
Are you sure he's not? Are you a biologist?
No.
I took a biology class one time.
I did take a biology class one time.
I think I'm married to a woman, I guess, but I'm not a biologist, so...
How do you define woman?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, moving on. So I also I love this story too, because like the Peters, because I think one of the things they do with the interludes is because it shows Peter having a life back home, it reinforces how desperate he needs to be to get back. And where it's not just a fight for his life for his own sake. Like, his life means more because he's got friends, he's got family, he's got his wife.
So you're saying it raises the stakes.
It raises the stakes in a way that doesn't take away from the action in the story because of how well it's laid out.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because if you just had the action in the story, it would actually move it too quick. You could tell the comic like.
Okay. All right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I was thinking from a narrative perspective, but from a pacing perspective, you're 100% right. I had not actually thought about that part of it.
So Captain Cummings, do you want to spoil how Peter gets out of this, or any other moments that we should show that are cool?
I mean,
well, actually, I've got one.
I already said that it was a spoiler off the cover, but I won't give away like the whole ending, but just know that it's like an outsmarting move, essentially.
This is a great picture to show.
Just buck naked as the Venom.
I think the part, okay, that part is yeah, especially since he's like super buff and it's like awkward. But the part I like is, and Larson's doing a really cool thing here artistically, because Venom is like Eddie's shadow in this panel, and he's even kind of, I think, matching from almost like the lighting perspective, I think, like what the shadow placement would be. And so Spider-Man is like, Brock's taking a breather while the alien keeps watch. And so his shadow is literally looking out for him. And that just gives a really interesting layer to the creepiness of what Venom is. He's not just a monster. He's this like, the symbiote is just a weird alien thing. And through a panel like this, a very subtle, a somewhat subtle imagining of Venom being Eddie's shadow. I love this image, apart from the buck naked part.
Well, he could be wearing Speedos, tiny little briefs.
Right. Yeah, we can't quite tell.
I like to imagine that's what's going on.
Yeah. But I love the image of what that does, and it's cool because like it shows again that Larson has craft. And,
if you think about it, it's kind of like so Venom is like the anti-character, and in this case, Spider-Man, Peter Parker has spider sense, but this is a visual representation of Eddie Brock with that same spider sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good point.
And I made that up.
The spider sense didn't work on Venom. That was
Yeah, the spider sense doesn't work on Venom, and that's actually one of the interesting things is that like this is a yet again another line in which we have more like is that Peter's outclassed because the Venom, the spider sense. I mean, the symbiote gives Brock spider sense, but it also looks out for Brock as an independent being.
So it's 2-on-1 essentially.
2-on-1.
It's not 1-on-1. The fight is 2-on-1, and this panel again sells that concept, which is interesting.
I'm not sure what made Taylor sick.
I think it was the idea of buck naked Brock.
Yeah. So it's possible. Okay.
I think he actually is wearing briefs. There's some line work that makes it that implies I think he's wearing his tidy whities.
Yeah, and in some scenes he's wearing the symbiote as briefs too. That happens later on.
Yeah, that also gets a little creepy.
That was
no.
That was a CCA level of creepy though. That was it's like we got to have him covered in something.
Oh gosh. Okay, let me get that image off screen. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps up that one. We are to our last book of the night, Spider-Man 400, which was RJ's pick. And RJ has something to share. I don't know. Is it there?
Yes, it's there. It is.
Whoa!
Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man, number 400. And when you asked me to pick my favorite Spider-Man story, I really thought this was going to be easy because I was like, I love Spider-Man, the character. What I found out is that I like Spider-Man, but I don't love him. There were very, very few storylines that I could actually remember, let alone say, that one floored me. That's Spider-Man to the core. So while I love Peter Parker and, I get the character, his story is always the same story to me. Hard luck guy, trying to make ends meet. Somebody's robbing a bank and ruining my day. Here I could have cashed a check, and now I've got to, go to the check cashing place and spend another $7 on top of it, which is going to cut into my groceries because I had to stop the guy from robbing the bank. That kind of thing.
That's an oddly specific. How's your day going, RJ?
And then someone stole my sandwich.
Yes, exactly. Which I had webbed up to the corner of the building. How did they even find it there in the first place?
I've got to say though, whoever's editorial idea was to make that cover like that, I hate it.
It looks a lot better in person because you can actually see the embossing.
Right? Yeah,
it's embossed. Yeah. It's a die cut cover. I've got 2 of them. And the thing that I loved about this one was that, first of all, I could remember what happened in it. And second of all, I really thought it was going to stick because Aunt May had been kicking around for years.
Like 500 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This was her second death.
Her second death.
Yeah.
She's back again, of course.
I know. She's
I
back like twice
I
more.
remember Woodrow Wilson.
It's been 84 years. Oh, wait. That's not...
I remember when the Titanic was a little ship.
I threw the heart of the ocean into the water. Yeah, and God. First of all, I never understood why Aunt May was that old and raising teenage Peter Parker. She's his aunt.
I know the answer to this question. It's because before like 1980, people just aged faster. You go back and watch the old TV shows of people that you look it up, and those guys were in their 30s and they looked like they're in their 50s.
That's
Right?
true.
Okay,
Like
I'll buy that. But given the
Everybody
retcon,
smoked cigarettes and drank.
Well,
I'm sorry, Aunt May looks like she lived through the Victorian period. She's like, I
Yes.
lived through. I remember when people in
my
our
first
country.
husband went to the Black Death.
I remember when people in our country didn't have rights.
Yes,
That's how old Aunt May looks.
and then given the retcon that, of course, Richard and Mary Parker raised May's son, which was Peter. If you read Trouble, that miniseries.
Yeah,
again,
that was
creepy.
that was out of continuity like instantly though.
Was it?
Also,
Okay.
I would like to take the point to make out that Bill Jamis has ruined everything.
That's what he does.
That's what he does.
But
Hey,
these 2
Neil.
pages here I put in juxtaposition because it's like early in Peter's career here. He's remembering Aunt May. Aunt May's on her deathbed this entire issue. And he's never told her who he was. And this was one of the things that cemented his decision never to do that because of the way she reacted to Spider-Man catching the killer of Uncle Ben. He's like, okay, I can never tell her because she hates him. And then the part that always, the part of the story I actually remember, because I'm like, if I remembered, it must have dug into my brain in a special way, was when they're on top of the Empire State Building. She asked for him to take her up there just to see the city. And she asks him, what's it like swinging over all these skyscrapers and stuff? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you lived under my roof. I'm not an idiot. And then, basically tells him that, I forced myself not to want to know.
So what do you think about that? Because like there's been a couple moments lately, or I guess later on in Spider-Man's career, because they did it with Jameson too, and I have mixed feelings about it because like there's that story that somebody did, and it's like Jameson like sees through like Spider-Man or is known for a while, or no, that wasn't it. It was Jameson was like much nicer all along or something, and you get these really big like character like inversions where it's something that you've known for like 40 50 years, and it's like, no, actually I knew all along. And I'm like, I can almost buy it with Aunt May, but like I don't know, there's something about it that feels a little weird when it almost feels like a rug pull when you completely recontextualize a character that you've known for decades.
Well, if Jameson was going to be any kind of a real reporter, or ever was any kind of a real reporter, it would make sense. I would actually buy Robbie Robertson figuring it out and keeping it quiet for decades.
And distracting Jonah from the whole thing. I think that seemed like a very Robbie thing.
It's kind of like the Lucius.
Like, get inside a robot and like attack Spider-Man if he knew the whole time. That wouldn't make sense.
Sorry, that was my mistake. I think the twist that they did on Jameson was when Peter Parker comes to get a job, and then they have they recontextualize that moment of Jameson like, oh, I'm gonna really give this kid a break because I'm a nice guy at heart. And it was like when Ditko and Lee introduced Jameson, he was a garbage human. And I'm fine with him evolving over time and becoming less of a garbage human. But when you get that early panel where literally in a thought balloon, Jameson spells out why he hates Spider-Man, and it's basically, I am jealous of him, and therefore I must destroy him. And that is a very Ayn Rand thing, but it encapsulates who Jameson was when he was introduced. And when they like in that sort of like more modern recontextualization of, oh, I'm actually really a nice guy underneath that all. I don't.
Whoa.
I thought, what did I hit? And then I realized I wasn't driving.
Whoops.
That was me. I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah. So RJ, what's the panel? What's your take on this kind of recontextualization of Aunt May?
On this recontextualization, I'm not used to seeing her so ugly angry. But at the same time, she was in grief, and she's going through that particular stage where grief turns to anger.
Right. And so for a little framework, also want to explain the panel here on our left is from the backup story, which is called The Morning After. And it's supposed to be the morning after Peter catches the robber that killed Ben. So that's the panel on the right is the if I'm looking at this right, is from on the Empire State Building there. That's from the main story that's happening in issue 400. So they're both are from 400, but one is the backup that's back in the day when Aunt May looks the same age as she does.
She hasn't aged a day.
10 years, this is canonically 10 years later. So just so you know, like that's the thing.
She's well presered.
She's been 85 for like 50 years.
That's what it means.
Exactly.
80 years young.
And I think they pretty much stole her dialogue for Batman Begins for Lucius Fox's line where he's like, it's all your stuff, but don't presume I'm an idiot.
Okay. But
because she says the same thing. She says, "I'm not an idiot. I knew all the time."
And I'm like, you know what? I think I would have liked this moment more if she hadn't said I've known. Cause actually, they don't quite say when she found out. I think she said I've known for years.
Yeah.
So there's at least a little bit of wiggle room that for some of the early stories that from the Lee Ditko era or Romita that she didn't know, and at some point she found out. And I guess I could buy that.
It was probably
when
she got married to Dr. Octopus.
Dr. Octopus. Okay.
That's the thing. When she says, I'm not an idiot. And I'm like, you did try marrying Dr. Octopus.
Are you though? Are you though?
You married a guy with robot arms.
I don't remember if this came, how far after this came.
He said he was a handyman. I didn't know that meant 4 metal arms. I needed a hand around the house, Peter. You're never around.
He was a little handsy, if you know what I mean.
I was browsing that internet thing and saw tentacles and...
It's called a fetish, Peter. We all have them.
Lost Matt.
You guys are the worst.
No.
But there was a cover, and I think it was a McFarlane cover, where Peter, and it's from inside the story, even if it's on the cover. Peter's come home from a fight. He's been trashed. His uniform's been scrapped, and he just throws on the floor and crashes on the bed. And Aunt May lets herself into his apartment, sees him all beat up on the bed, and she's holding the costume. Has that moment of revelation. I don't know if that's where she learned, or if this. It was another Aunt May figured out what's going on thing, but at least in this particular book, it ended the way it should have ended. She dead. She needs to pass.
She looks like a zombie in that picture. I just realized.
Look out, Peter! She's coming back.
Yeah, she's very ashen colored in that. So Peter is too.
The real secret, Peter, is I've actually been dead for 20 years. It's just taken this long to catch up.
Now, what I don't remember is how in the world she came back.
I believe it was not actually Aunt May who dies here. It was a body double by some sort of nefarious.
Wasn't it Norman? Isn't
Norman? I think
Osborn
Norman was behind it. Also, for the record, I'm just going to say this out there: whoever's idea it was to bring Norman back No. You should be banned from comics, even shops, forever.
So let me get right.
Who was
Basically, Norman Osborn, when he first met Spider-Man and found out he was Peter Parker, decided, I'm going to clone everybody in your life.
I'm going to
For later
clone
use.
your 85-year-old grandmother, and that's going to really do a number on you, Spider-Man.
And then I'm going to clone your girlfriend, and I'm going to have sex with her.
Oh my god, it's terrible.
And we're going to have kids.
Oh my god, that should never have happened.
That was the worst. That's potentially even worse than Spider-Verse. I remember looking
now
through
the
that.
other thing about this,
it is.
the other thing about this
Terrible.
pick that I thought was really interesting, RJ, is that this is in the middle of the Clone Saga. So while Peter is dealing with, is my aunt going to live or not, he's also dealing with, hey, I have a clone who has been alive for 5 years that I thought was dead, and he's come back around because he's worried about his aunt. What?
Yes.
And so,
and maybe I'm the clone.
yeah. That was on the thing too, because this was after the Jackal had made the big announcement, and just after Mary Jane finds out she's pregnant, and this whole thing's all going on. So there's all of this stuff going on here, which comes back to something Taylor had said at the beginning of the chat. Is the Clone Wars the best or worst thing to happen to Spider-Man ever?
I think
The
that
Clone
depends
Saga,
on
not
whether
the
you
Clone
like it or
Wars.
not.
So like any good parent, Doug Ernst walked in on the one moment that he shouldn't have walked in on our Spider-Man conversation. Yes, Doug, you're chastised. Sorry. I swear most of the conversation was wholesome. You just happened to come on the exact moment.
Oh, hey. That is not what I asked Doug.
She said, I was looking up chicken recipes, and they said I had to tie the hen. So I said, how do you make a hen tie? And the next thing I knew.
Damn it, RJ.
I lost track of our conversation. What were we talking
I
about?
was talking about. I brought up the Clone Wars, and I was just like, I didn't think Spider-Man was a big Star Wars fan, so I was going to move on.
That
No,
nice Mr. Eichenwald gave me a website.
Clone Saga. I think has often been portrayed as the worst thing to happen to
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
I say it's Spider-Verse. I think Spider-Verse is the worst. It just breaks because with some of those other stories, I think they break like one thing. And it might be a very important thing about Spider-Man, but it still like breaks one thing. It's like breaking a leg, and then some like Clone Wars breaks one leg, and one more day breaks like a couple of arms. But Spider-Verse
One more day was the worst thing that happened.
Spider-Verse gives like cancer. Like it's like there's no going back. You've killed everything. It's done.
So,
like
Cap'n Cummings, what do you think? Where do you stand on the Clone Saga?
On the Clone Saga, I think it's hyped up as being the worst thing because you can write articles about it. I think it probably went on too long, but I think overall it's kind of like Spider-Man's Nightfall or something. You know, like you could make 3 omnibuses or something, and then like
huge.
sell it like that.
Which Taylor says we have Aunt May dying in the middle of the Clone Saga, but I thought Clone Saga led it straight into One More Day. No. There is about 7 years difference between the end of the Clone Saga, which was 97, and then it's 20. Well, it's not 7 years, but it's 2005 was 2007 actually was One More Day because Civil War was in the middle of that.
And I would also say that Batman's Nightfall is about 1,000 times better than the Clone Saga.
I agree.
But I mean, it was actually like planned out. You know,
so here's my problem with the Clone Saga was, first of all, the whole am I the clone or am I not the clone, like that part of the story like wasted so much space, and I think it made you like not care so much.
So what's funny about that here is Ben O'Reilly literally just like puts a tombstone on that. No, bro, it's you. And I liked that. It was like, no, it's you.
Well,
We're done.
And it's one of those things where, like, I think the Ben struggling with the fact that he has these memories that were implanted of Peter's life and has all of these emotions and things that he's tied to. Like, I think that's a legitimate aspect of it. And I love the Scarlet Spider design. I know it's 90s schlock. I don't care. I love it anyway. Right? And
it's okay. You know what? I'm gonna say this.
Spidey.
It is okay to like 90s aesthetics. It got somewhere in the, I don't know, 2000s, maybe early 2000s or something. Maybe it's because it followed after the 90s. It got like really in vogue to trash the 90s aesthetic. But I'm like, I look back on it and I'm like, it's fine. And
some of them are really good.
Well,
That's
that's
yeah,
because you always make fun of the prior thing, right?
Right.
So in the 80s, it was fun to make fun of bell bottoms or whatever, but
yeah.
You know, it always comes back around.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I can't wait to see what people say about current year superhero designs and how laughably cringe some of them are even today.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. I'm looking at you, Kamala Khan, your goofy Halloween costume.
Well, that's
She's just a cosplayer. That's the.
I know cosplayers who have better costumes than that. She looks like she went to the Walmart section and went for the, not even the real Batman or superhero version, but where it says Hero Man. And it's like,
have you seen the kid? He's got a Batman mask on or something like. It's really confusing. It's really funny, but he goes, so the person goes, you got a Black Panther suit on, and you got a Batman mask on. He goes, what are you? And he goes, I'm Black Man. And it's like a TikTok thing that usually it's like a bunch of people laughing about it.
That's funny. But yeah, so I think that the Clone Saga had some weight to it. The side kind of building out there, but my problem is that people even then were part of the reason they weren't wanting to introduce Ben Reilly is because there were people that are uncomfortable writing married Peter, but knew there was enough Peter MJ fans that they couldn't just undo all of that. So they're like, well, let's get a single Peter in there, and then we can go ahead and tell single Peter stories, and it'll be great. Because being single and 30 in New York isn't depressing at all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it is basically Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, they should have cloned a younger version. That would have worked.
I hate whenever they take a concept character that's been unique for decades and then franchise them out. Like McBatman.
McBatman, yeah, exactly. Batman Incorporated,
like,
literally.
Oh wait, yeah, Batman Incorporated. At least Batman Incorporated, they weren't all Batman. They were like the club of heroes.
And they weren't they all like cheesy like Batmans that had like one stories like one time in different eras.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like the Batman Incorporated was based on the Batman Many Nations stories from the 50s. And so there was a few Knight and Squire stories. There was a few I can't remember all of the
I have the one
El Gaucho. El Gaucho was the Mexican Batman.
I have the one
really
where
liked
Japan. There's a Japanese
one. I liked the Batman Inc. stuff, but anyways.
Yeah.
But
well,
you have there's all these bats, you have all these flashes, now you have all these spiders. Like it's like you said with Syndrome, you know, when everybody's Spider-Man, nobody is.
Well, and part of it for me is like the root for the Clone Saga started in the original Clone story back in the 70s.
Yes,
so like there already was this in the grist, right? That was already part of the universe.
In
so
the grist? What are you, 80?
Yes.
Gotta use metaphors from like the 19. At least we're on brand.
Okay. Anyway,
you're old. I'm
gonna have some wheat cakes. Come back and talk about this.
All right, anyway. Well, fire up the mill so I can put some grist in it.
It was in the mix already. Okay, there you go. You like that better?
Yes, I do.
Thinking millennial. Anyway, so but it was already in the mix, so it wasn't like it was a big stretch out of it. And I think that the idea of like, okay, what if the clone lived? What kind of? I think that's a legitimate question to have. And I think that there is something to say. We don't want to just have another Spider-Man, and that's one of the things I loved about Lyle's design for the Scarlet Spider was it was Spider-Man, but not. It was such a departure from the look of Spider-Man while still looking kind of like Spider-Man. I didn't think it took away from it. I think having Silk, having whatever else can really dilute that, but I think that there is some weight to that. And I'm a big fan of the Bat family and the Super family, as long as it's done with certain limits. You don't want to have like a million of them. And I think Damian Wayne really kind of put just his existence, killed that whole the equilibrium to that.
Well, in the 90s here too, you had a bunch of Spider-Man at this point. You had the 2099 and all that, but they had their own place. They had their own stories at times and all that. And really now everybody's jam-packed in New York City, and it's like why do you need this many Spider-Man?
All right.
Yeah.
And that's just after this, you have when they did the M2 universe, right? Spider-Girl stories are some of the best Spider-Man stories that were ever told. Like they're amazing. The Falco, was that the guy? I can't remember. Anyway, they were great, and they were just a derivative character, but it wasn't in a way that took anything away from Peter's stories, because it's in the future, and you still got to see, even though Peter had been injured and wounded and couldn't do his thing anymore,
lost
you
his
still got
leg.
to see what.
Lost his leg.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was lost or if it was just lame in that leg. Like, it just couldn't remember if it was just missing or whatever.
Totally lost it, and he didn't take advantage of the Kurt Connors formula. Go figure.
Well, I guess maybe he only wanted one set of animal powers. Want to double down on those? Like, well,
you can't mix your totems.
He's a spider lizard.
Dumbest thing.
We have a second vote from the chat. Dave Ashanovich says, before I go, I want to say I dig a 6-armed Spider-Man story from issue 100. So
yeah, I was hoping that for a couple minutes at least we could maybe drop the link in chat and ask if anyone from the
hey, we
audience.
do have enough room today because somebody didn't want to come on and talk. So let me go ahead and copy this. We'll do that since we have some extra spots.
Yeah. Come. So if you have a favorite Spider-Man story and you want to come on the show and briefly mention it to us, I might even be able to pull up some images from it. So yeah, we do this for you guys, chat. Mostly we do it for us, but you're included in the equation.
So
have they ever done anything with what Miles Morales from the 616 is doing, or?
Yeah, they do sort of. I mean,
I know they mentioned it like one time, but.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, nothing. Okay.
I kind of quit paying attention at that point, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So
I liked it when it was like in his own thing, just like, because it doesn't make sense if like the stuff that I've read where Miles is with Peter, like you would think it would be like a mentoring type thing, but it doesn't. It usually doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, that would seem like a natural, right? But.
Yeah, and it would also seem like if Peter Parker was mentoring him, it wouldn't be Spider-Man and Spider-Man. It would be Spider-Man and
Spider
Kid
Boy.
Spider, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave says, not a comic, but the cartoon Spider-Man is Amazing Friends when he teamed up with the X-Men versus the Juggernaut.
With Australian Wolverine. Yes, that was fantastic.
I don't remember that one, but that's
Firestar is cool. She's neat.
Firestar, yeah. I always thought it was cool having Firestar and Iceman and Peter. I always thought that was a fun combo.
Watch those things very easily now.
Yeah, I haven't watched them since
you used to be able to see them on Netflix, like probably 10 years ago. But
and Firestar was also Firestar was
on Disney.
Take 4.
You go
ahead.
first.
Dang it. Firestar is in Maximum Carnage as well, which is cool. Yeah. She actually goes almost nuclear. Well, not nuclear, but she just about comes this close to murdering Carnage because when he comes back, he's not nearly as weak to the symbiote weaknesses anymore for some reason. And so they have to work a lot harder to take him down. But Firestar comes yay close to not only taking him down, but freaking just like killing him. I think it's because of what they think happened to Cloak. So I think they were trying to avenge somebody. But
Yeah, 'cause she like dies and then comes back like 3 days later or something like that. Like she's like has like a Christ type resurrection or something.
well, I think is it Shriek or whatever? I think she messes up. Someone messes up Cloak, and I think Dagger is like mourning him. Am I getting this wrong? No, yeah. I think they think Cloak is dead for a little bit or something.
Yeah.
But Firestar plays an interesting role there. Captain America shows up, which is cool. And actually, what's really interesting about Maximum Carnage is that if you have played the Super Nintendo game Maximum Carnage, it follows the plot of the comic book pretty well. And it's so as an adaptation, it even has like panels of the comic that actually show up in the game.
That game's really hard though.
It is. I don't think I'd get past like the first level. But what I love about it is how it integrates the comic into like, and it's not just like based on, it's like integrating an actual storyline. And so it's really neat.
I love Dave's comment here because he says it was supposed to be Human Torch in the cartoon, but they felt they needed a female character, the not gays. So Iceman's there.
So
that's not fair. Iceman, I have nothing else to say. Iceman,
I know, it's just like
Iceman was straight.
Up until 6 years ago, is it 6? Is it 7 now? Iceman was super not gay.
Yeah.
He was super not.
He had girlfriends. He dated Mystique for crying out loud.
He was super straight.
2015.
Yeah. So whatever that comes to.
I can't believe they did that. That's so ridiculous.
And wasn't it because like Jean Grey turned him gay or something?
Not officially, but yes.
More or less.
She's done it to Kitty Pryde too.
Because teenage.
That's like advanced level grooming.
Yeah.
She's done it to Kitty Pryde, and she's done it to make Wolverine and Scott quit fighting with each other.
I mean, you don't want to take away like the best rivalry in X-Men.
Yeah. I always wanted to know how come, first of all, I wanted to know who was living on the apartment below them. Secondly, I wanted to know who was paying for the place. And then why didn't the candy dish ever get emptied out whenever the whole thing flipped over to show the computers? Because you had to transform the whole apartment, which was just flip the floor. It's like there's a whole floor under here where there's nothing but upside down furniture hanging from the ceiling.
Maybe it's like Nightwing's place where he bought the whole building and converted part of it into his secret cave, which was one of the. I gotta say, what Chuck Dixon did with those like first 50 issues of Nightwing. My God, that was every issue was brilliant from like a lore building. He built a world that like could have gone on for decades, and DC's like, nah, we're gonna drop Chemo on Bloodhaven. It's like, what kind of morons are running the company, man?
So 7 says late to the show. Again, we have link in chat. If you want to, I think it's pinned. If you want to come on,
not, but it can be.
Yeah, let's pin that. So yeah, if anyone from chat or our audience wants to come on and share with us your favorite Spider-Man story, we want to hear from you. But if while we're waiting for someone to join, 7 does say that the time when Reed Richards separates the symbiote from Spidey and he's loaned the Fantastic Four costume in paper, the Amazing Bag Man, is that your favorite?
The Amazing Bag Man.
Yeah.
And Dominic, go ahead.
I was gonna say as a visual gag, it's just amazing.
Dominic Powell says, my favorite Spider-Man comic is a toss-up between Spider Carnage storyline with Ben Reilly and an issue from Giant Michael Straczynski's run where he was helping one of his students with a situation from home.
Yeah, I like the idea of Pete as a substitute teacher. I thought that was a really good fit.
Does anybody remember the Spider-Man Power Pack public service announcement comic?
Oh, the
I
one where
remember it, but I've never read it.
it's
Okay,
the one where
it
he
is with-
admits that he was abused as a child.
Yes. Peter Parker was, I don't know if he ever got fully abused or if he got away in time, but there was an old, because he was like pre-Spider-Man, still nerdy Peter Parker. And there was an older kid who took an interest in him. And the Aunt May and Uncle Ben really liked him. He got to stay over there and got a little handsy, and Peter managed to kind of get away.
I don't like this. I don't like this story.
Well, and Peter's telling the story to a kid who's a young boy whose female babysitter is, saying, yes, you can stay up and watch TV late, but you have to, watch it in your underwear.
I really don't like this story.
It was a very important, very, very special episode of Amazing Spider-Man.
I have never been more uncomfortable talking about comics in my life.
Yeah,
Well,
I thought we were supposed to
Spider-Man
be talking
saves this
about.
kid, and he tells him the story. Says, "Hey, it's not just you."
We're
Yeah.
supposed to be talking about our favorite Spider-Man stories.
What?
the ones
I
that-
remember it.
Not the ones that scarred us as a child.
Oh, well, shoot! I remember this was a two-parter. I didn't even go into the Power Pack story.
Oh,
my
goodness.
gosh. Can you? Is it worse?
It was the same theme in the same book.
Were they-
It's
were they-
got
were-
to be worse.
were
The
they-
Power
were they-
Pack is worse than Spider-Man.
Yeah, are you going to did Power Pack did Power Pack get accidentally sent to Epstein Island? Like, what?
Well, something happened to Katie because now she's joined the. Never mind. She met Jean Grey.
Oh, that's all you need to say no. That's a shame. I really like Jean Grey. Why do people have to ruin things?
Because people like to ruin things. But that's not the theme of this show. I think,
No.
Oh, guys.
What is the theme of this show?
No, Taylor, we don't, because we're talking about our favorite Spider-Man story, and I think we're done. I don't think anybody's been convinced, but I think we've all enjoyed our talk.
Definitely.
So next week, I have a special announcement for a very special episode of the Mattriarchy. Next week, we are going to be having on Scott with the Flock and oh my goodness, Tonic Mole talking about it's the Comics Creators Club. We're going to be talking about Saving the World and the Flock. So that's going to be a fun show. And then the week after, I think we are having our discussion on cardboard. And then for the month of May, guys, I'm the first time anybody besides my wife knows this. For the month of May, no shows. Well, there'll be one show in the month of May.
You're just on purpose. No
Because
show.
we're gonna do the conference prep show, right?
So yes. Several of us who are regulars or semi-regulars have been accepted into an academic comic book conference, and I'm taking time off to get my paper ready. So I can't sit here and just talk about comics when I have to spend time researching and writing about comics.
Talk about comics.
So yeah. Comics. But we are going to do a preview show where we preview our papers here, and if you guys get to get a little bit of a taste of what an academic conference looks like. So buckle up, because that one's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
Also, definitely come for the Comics Creators Club. We have been having a blast with that. We do voice acting, and it's been just a laugh riot.
If I was prepared, I'd share a video that got put together for last time's voice acting. That's hilarious. I'll probably put it out on Twitter later.
Actually, if you give me a second, I might be able to pull it up.
Okay. Well,
so
there you go.
Give me a second. Let me see if I can pull it.
So it'll be June before we come back with our favorite next superhero story.
Yes, and we'll talk about that after we end the show. And who knows? Maybe Green Lantern. All right. Who knows?
I could probably pull some of those.
Yeah. I was one of our regulars for this segment that we had last week was Hutch, and Hutch says, "Well, I don't like Spider-Man, and I've only read like 3 books, and I didn't care for them." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess
I've read tons. They just like, you know.
Yeah. So,
Right,
so that's
hold
the
on.
story. But
I think I can do this. Give me 1 second to rearrange my tabs, and I can share a window. Share system audio.
let's see.
Let me
if it works.
see. All right, so pull this up to the beginning. Can you hear it?
Nope.
Son of a gun. You sure?
Yep.
Dang it.
I listened
Okay.
twice.
How do you see? That's the problem. Is it's like if I can't.
I'll just share it on Twitter later. It's
Okay.
I don't want to spend the whole time. Oh, Dave Ishanovich suggests it's our favorite Groove the Wanderer story. I've only read 2, so I need to.
There's only one. It's 50 issues long.
Touche, RJ. I appreciate that.
That's my favorite Groove the Wanderer story. The series.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
The omnibus.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say next week, Comics Creators Club. Be there. Be square. Did you have something to say before we go? Twitless?
Oh, definitely check out Adventures of a Girl #1. Issue 2 should be coming out any minute as soon as Blam
the
gets
links
around.
are in the description.
Yep.
All the way down there.
Excellent.
To all of our content, except, Captain, I could have put your YouTube channel up there. I didn't think about that.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go. We did somebody jump in the chat, and so I will bring him on just to say goodbye. So,
nice.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I invited people, and then we're getting ready to leave. So,
hey, Bats. So we were talking about our favorite Spider-Man stories. Did you have a favorite Spider-Man story that you want to share with the world?
I just like Stan Lee Spider-Man a lot. I don't have a one particular story, but just the era of Stan Lee. I think the Ditko era is freaking brilliant, and I think the Romita era is brilliant too.
Yeah, we actually reviewed a Ditko story earlier today. It was fun.
Yeah. My pick was Spider-Man #20, which was his fight with the Scorpion. That was my pick.
It was a good time.
I really like when the Vulture shows up. I don't know why, but I just think an old man in a green bird suit is just incredible storytelling for some reason.
Yeah, I like any story that can make an old man a formidable villain because I'm on the cusp of that. So I'm really hoping I can be formidable.
You're hoping that you can pivot to being I'll get you, Superman.
Well, and there's like multiple of them. That's the cool part too.
You big red cheese.
Awesome. Okay.
I mean, old men just look more evil too. So
that's true.
That is a good point.
So there's that.
That's the wrinkles.
It is.
It's
the
wrinkles, correct.
Well, that's a show, guys.
Oh, sorry.
So, no, that's fine. It is time. So we're gonna go ahead and kill it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next week, Comics Creators Club. Check it out. And until next time, keep reading comics. Later.